Ulonka tabati yada to ye ko mada ifa. Inu to ye ko jeun. Love bi pa. Oba tala, oba takutakun. Shango Eshu, Ogun Oya Osun. Kini ṣẹ̀ṣe tán ṣe nílé yìí o. Ó jẹ́ lọ jára rẹ̀.
Alafia, Aboro, Boye, Aboshi, Shay. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Ifa, and today we finally got some feminine energy in the Ashe neighborhood, man. We definitely are kicking it off with not just one, but two or three, but we bringing it all the way with the Olori temple and some real life royalty in terms of the holy Shay experience, man. So I'm definitely excited to have all of y'all along with us, and thank y'all for joining us. I definitely appreciate it. We have on today Shango Kemi. We also have on Orisa Sola, as well as
Olomi Tutu.
Yeah, man. So with that, man, thank y'all for joining us. I appreciate it. And yeah, just to get things started, y'all come from a real life royal bloodline. So, with that, y'all want to kind of share just the whole experience of growing up, in the Ishe tradition, because a lot of people is new, including myself, is pretty new, but there's a lot of people who's gravitating to it, but y'all were actually born and raised in it. So with that, can you kind of share with us a little bit about, your upbringing and how, the Ishe and Ifa and Orisha culture kind of molded you into who and what you all are now today?
All right. Duro's usually our spokesperson, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off in my own words. But I was born Oyotunji, African village in South Carolina, USA, back in 1972. I was born right at home, along with several of my other siblings that were born in this house, right on the land of Oyotunji. So that right there was different. We left Oyotunji when I was 8 years old, and we were basically ushered into Western life, Western society. But growing up in Oyotunji and growing up in the religion of the Orisha, it was definitely different. Entering into Western society, it was a culture shock for all of us, because I didn't know a lot of things when we came into Western culture. But just growing up in Oyotunji, as far as the dress code, when we left Oyotunji, my stepfather was very strict as far as continuing the culture and the religion. Where he wasn't going to let it drop. So in Oyotunji, the dress code was African clothes. So when we left Oyotunji, it didn't change. African clothes was still our dress code. We were taught in a different type of school than the Western school. So it was quite a transition. Because everything in Oyotunji was cultural, all the way from in the morning when we wake up, we can hear drums beating. The drums would announce different things that were going on. The drums would announce it's time to go to school. The drums would announce when visitors came into the village. It was intense as far as structure and routine and order and discipline. Children had their place. Priests were revered. Adults and elders were also revered, and they were given quite respect. When we would greet an elder or an adult, we were to dobale, or what they say, prostrate on the ground to salute the elders. So that was different coming into Western culture, because none of that mattered anymore. It didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter any of those things. And back in the 80s, it was 1981, I want to say, when we left Oyotunji. So it was an intensely different time. So our African clothes, it was no climate for Africa back then. Oyotunji was almost like a myth to a lot of people. We were on different shows that were like, this really exists. To have something like that in America. Oyotunji was founded for the African American who wanted to get back in touch with their ancestral culture, their ancestral religion, to know who they were before slavery, before they were colonized and told to worship, a religion that wasn't their own. So Oyotunji was for the African American who was looking for their cultural roots. They were looking for a spiritual background. They were looking for information. They were looking for knowledge. And a lot of people were looking for themselves because they had been lost. And so Oyotunji stood for that. Growing up in Oyotunji and leaving at such a young age, I think that it kind of damaged me because growing up in Oyotunji, everything was African, from our clothes to our names. The language that was enforced several times a week, it was enforced that we would speak Yoruba only. There were days where we could only speak Yoruba. But leaving Oyotunji at 8 years old and coming into Western society, we lost a lot of that. A lot of that was lost as far as the religion, the culture. The religion stayed because my stepdad was staunch in that. I want to say, we left Oyotunji for a reason, even though it was tumultuous and it was rough. But I think at that time, I look back on it 40 something years later, I look back at it like it was time, because had we not left Oyotunji, I think that the religion and the culture and all of that was going on in Oyotunji would have stayed in Oyotunji. It would have never gotten out into mainstream America and been spread like that, because when we moved to South Carolina, people seeing us in our African clothes, with our African names, with our tribal marks on our face, because in Oyotunji, everything was traditional. Everything was done like it was done in the beginnings, the ancient times of Oyo, Nigeria. So, in Yoruba land, everything was still intact, from the names and you receiving a reading, you receiving a ball before you even reached to the world, before you even took your first breath. You were known. It was known what your gender was. It was known what you were coming with. All of that had been lost, but it had been brought back in Oyotunji. And still, they're doing the same things. But had we not left Oyotunji, and I give all praises to my mother and to my stepfather, Oguntolu Akinlana, because they were pioneers. When we left Oyotunji, my stepdad and my mom, they were staunch in the belief that they were not going to allow us to forget our ancestral background. We were going to continue all of those cultures and traditions, and they were going to stick with us. And I think that they did a great job with it. However, reaching Western society, coming out of Oyotunji, it kind of everybody around you being in the same culture, the same mindset, and you being the only one that is different, for a child, that was almost devastating. It was really intense for a lot of us. And some of my family members didn't quite adapt to that environment. A lot of us kind of fell off and went by the wayside and started following the traditions and the cultures of Western society. However, it really stayed intact with the other half. And the good thing is that we had a bunch of siblings, so that, if it didn't get those at the beginning, it did hit those towards the end. And that's basically how it continues in our family right now. And the good thing is now, with a lot of, I want to say popularity for African spirituality, for Ifa worship. It's like a huge renaissance going on right now. And, I give credit to Oyotunji. I give credit to my mother and to my stepfather for continuing that legacy, because after we left, all of the Bimbes, we continue to do worship. We continue to worship our altars and our Orisha. And, all of that stuck with us. And us moving from place to place like we did, and finally reaching here to Florida, and reaching Tampa, Florida, and the climate for African spirituality was kind of restricted to Rastafarianism. It was restricted to Yahweh. The Yahwehs were big, and that was going on in this town. However, Ifa had not reached a lot of places at that time. But with my stepfather and my mom, my mom would make jewelry, and she would do readings, and my stepdad also, he would go and take the jewelry that she made, and he would go from door to door here in Tampa, Florida, during the times of the projects, College Hill, Central Park, all of those places, the West Tampa projects. Those were the places where he would go to sell his jewelry. And my mom would make these 7 African power rings, and he would go from door to door, knocking on doors, and he would do his spiel, and he would take us with him sometimes. That's how I know about it, is because he would call it floating, and we would go and float through these projects and go door to door, and he would knock on the door and he would say, my name is Oguntolu Akinlana, and I am a priest of Ogun, and I'm promoting the African religion, the Yoruba religion. He would go into a whole spiel, and he was so good at it that he had he built his business off of this culture and this religion. So we became popular in our town because of that. We became popular because we were different, because we lived in the African communities, around town, and people saw us wearing our African clothes. People knew us by our African names, and so it became popular. And we wore braids, we wore gales, we wore beads and all of that. And as the years went on, as I progressed through school and went into high school, by the time I had graduated from high school, people were wearing more braids, because when we came to town, it was the jerry curl. It was the, jerry curl was like the biggest thing of the day, the activator, it was that, and then morphed into the perm, and and then all of a sudden, after I had graduated, we continue to wear our braids. We continue to do our Afrocentricities. And it seemed like there was this budding renaissance. It caught on, and more braids and more of the African traditional things. Kwanzaa started coming about. My mother was still active in the community doing the Queen Mothers. And, my stepfather was still he had now been to Africa, and now he had brought back a lot of knowledge to us. And we had learned about even more Orisha that didn't make it over here. And so, the progression was, it was tedious and slow. However, 43 years later, I can look at Tampa Bay and see the imprint of, our family moving here, because it was nothing like this before. And so I give the credit to my mother, my Olafemi, and my stepfather, Oguntolu Akinlana, because they were instrumental in laying the foundation for the building of this culture and this renaissance that is taking place right now. Duro and my sister Fashini, they want to talk about their experience as well. So
that's what's up. Now you gave a dope backstory, like for real, a very powerful backstory.
Thank you.
Yeah, from beginning all the way up until now, and that was dope. And then with that, Shango, Kemi, Duro Jaye, your experience in terms of kind of like, I think.
I was younger than Ebon. I was, as you all know, or you may not know, we are the collective children of our mother, Majile Oshimbumi, Olafemi, and then the first Oba of Oyotunji, Osajamin Adefumi, and then our stepfather, who eventually took us out of Oyotunji, Oguntolu Akinlana. And so I was 4 years old when we left Oyotunji. And so my experience leaving Oyotunji was, we kind of left quickly, abruptly. And I remember it was kind of early morning, almost nighttime, but early in the morning, maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. And I remember being rushed into a van or a truck and watching us about to drive away, and my toys was left in the yard. And I said, "Yay, we leaving my toys. We leaving the toys." And she said, "Duro, don't worry about it. We'll get more. We'll get more." And I just somehow felt like that's not true. We were leaving these toys. That was the introduction of leaving Oyotunji, was waking up one day and being rushed into a van and we leaving. And that story was a saga, if you will, because like I said, we kind of abruptly. And one of my memories on leaving abruptly before we even left South Carolina was we were still in that Beaufort area. And, one night we went to this gas station, and there's this Maryland fried chicken, and some of the men from the village kind of came up into the gas station too. And, they had been looking for us and wondering where we went. And I remember we saw this zebra van that they were driving, and Yeye, our mom, she was like, get down, everybody, get down. Don't even breathe.
Wow.
And I remember literally trying not to breathe because she said, don't breathe. You don't want these men to hear us breathing or else they're going to take us back to the village. But in you know, I remember in finally getting into the regular world, our father at the time, my stepfather, Oguntolu, he was a military man. So he was traveling all over the world, and he would bring back a number of different artifacts from different places around the world. So he introduced us to, you know, stuff from Turkey, Iraq, places in Asia. So a different perspective on things, and also at the same time, impressing our Africanism on us too. And while our mother, she was still very much involved in the culture. Every time we always saw her, she was always dressed in African clothes. You know, she was a very much cultured woman. You know, our stepfather, he was really impressed on us about it was important to keep the culture. He wanted us to always, you know, do the kunle or dobale, get on the ground, prostrate ourselves with him. And so that was sometimes a clash coming into the regular world where people don't get on the ground to salute their parents, and people don't wear African clothes, and people don't have African names. So sometimes it was a difficult transition. We had tribal marks on our faces, you know, and so for people who've never seen that before, they were always asking questions like, well, why do you have those, you know, tiger scratches? Freddy Krueger scratched you, or why is your name Lula 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 or Lula Lula? You know, just making fun of our names and stuff like that. So that was definitely a difficult transition. But again, having a lot of relatives, a bunch of, you know, Yeye had 8 children, and so, you know, it helped to have a backup system, you know, other brothers and other sisters and other kids that you could relate to, because you just could not ever relate to the people in the neighborhood and the people in the street. So, you know, I was late to go to school. I didn't get to go to school until I was about 7 years old, because Yeye our mother believed that me and my younger brother Kumbal were spiritual twins. So she wanted me to wait for him before we went to school. So I was like 2 years late in kindergarten. I was 7 years old in kindergarten, and he was 5 years old in kindergarten. So not only was I African, but, you know, I was also old, this old kid in school. And so, you know, once we moved out of South Carolina to Tampa, that's actually when I started school. And so that was definitely coming out of the protective home with all the sisters and brothers, and, you know, the strong male figure who was impressing the culture on us. Now, you know, we are, you know, tossed into schools, you know, in the Black neighborhoods. When we were living in South Carolina, because our stepfather was a military man, and a very accomplished military man at that, you know, we lived in a very prominent white neighborhood. And so the white kids were probably a little softer, if you will, you know, if we came into the African-American neighborhoods with the Black kids. And, you know, we in our community, we, you know, or a long time ago, we didn't like ourselves so much. You know, a lot of times with the white people, they just look at it as something different, you know, something they never seen. And okay, they ask questions. In our community, we were taught to just not like ourselves. So immediately when the kids realized that we were of African culture, it was, oh my God, you an African booty scratcher. You you know, you every name in the book that is a bad thing because it's bad to be African. And so that was like introduction from, you know, liking yourself and feeling like, okay, I come from, you know, a royal background, if you will, or an accomplished background, if you will, to now being an African booty scratcher and, you know, being way down low on the totem pole, because we didn't like people, us as a culture of people just didn't like being African and what that meant. So that was tough growing up. And so from the age of, you know, 7 all the way up to, you know, age 20, living in, you know, Tampa, Florida, in the hood, you know, that was tough. And it helped me develop a thick skin, you know. like as Abun said, it was tough on some of us. Some of us was like, we just gonna assimilate. For me, I was one of the younger ones. Abun was one of the younger ones as well. So the strong enforcement coming from a strong male figure who's going to make sure that you was proud of yourself. That was one of his main messages to us, is to be, proud of ourselves and not to take anything from my mother, because she was always very much like, hey, love yourself and, be proud. And she was one of the most loving mothers in the world. But she was not necessarily the strong force. It takes that man sometimes, that man that was like, right. Who cares what they saying to you? You're a powerful person. You're a leader. You're strong. And so, he impressed a lot upon us to be strong within that difficult environment, to feel good. But it was still difficult. It was still real hard. Because the pressure was coming from every direction, everybody in school, every child, and kids are cruel anyway in school. So now, right. Now you African on top of that. And then on top of, being African, our stepdad, again, he was very much into the culture. And so a lot of times he would be expecting us to prostrate in the streets in front of our friends, prostrate in the streets in front of our friends. And so that was hard too. Sometimes we were like, man, you a little too hard. You ain't got to make us do that. You ain't got to make us, do ballet in the streets. You ain't got to make us kneel in the streets. And at times we was angry with him about it, but as we got older, we realized that what he was trying to do was really mold us to be future leaders. And no matter what anybody says, no matter how anybody feels about you, it's up to you to decide, who your culture is and to love yourself, regardless if they love you. And eventually now, more and more and more people, some of the people that, a lot of the people, as a matter of fact, that from the old days that used to be calling us the African booty scratcher, it used to be joking us, are now clients and sacrifice clients, spiritual clients on all levels. So that early background truly did mold us. And for me anyway, since I was one of the younger ones, a lot of his, strong influence impressed me very much. And it helped me to be, really strong in myself and in my personal constitution about being an African cultured person in America. So, again, I have to give, props to, all three of my parents, because they all worked together to make us and to try to be leaders in this culture in America, and everything that means to be an African American, and not just, I'm African American just because I'm a descendant of Africans in America, but I'm an African American because that's my religion, that's my culture, that's my name, that's the way I've lived all my life. So, thanks to them.
I love it. Yes. And before I jump to Orisa Sola, it's crazy because I literally just had a moment like that Friday. Me and the Queen went to the Improv to see Cheryl Underwood, and I had on a suit top and my fila, and it's like I walked by, and mind you, it's all us pretty much in there. And when I walked by a table, one of them was like, "You ain't in Africa?" And I looked, it was a female. I looked, I couldn't tell who it was, so I couldn't get no straightening. But I wasn't gonna go in too hard on her, but I wasn't gonna check her because I was gonna quote my Malcolm. I was gonna be like, who taught you to hate yourself? Because what I'm wearing is representative of who and what we are, not just what I am. I love you. I tell you I love you, and I'm gonna pray for you because you hate yourself if you hate what I wear. What you are. The mother Africa is about the mothers. You know what I'm saying? Like when we really get down to the core of it, which we will later, but it's still happening. It really is still happening. Miss Orisa Sola, can you please share a little bit about your experience with coming up in these Shay traditions?
I don't think I could come behind them. I mean, damn. I should have went first.
Because she's the youngest.
I mean, I could definitely touch on some of the things they were talking about. It was like really valid points. Just the bullying in school was like next level. I was born after, they left the village. And so, I kind of grew up, I was the baby. So, I thought my family was fun. There was a lot of us. And it was the main issues that we had is when we stepped outside. So, getting a lot of, just African booty scratcher, Whoopi Goldberg, you wearing your own hairs and you look like Whoopi Goldberg, and like you hear people whispering, "Oh, man, don't mess with them. They got goats hung up in the back of their yard." They're gonna do some voodoo to you, they're gonna mess you up. So bullying, my experience, it never turned physical, but it was more, verbal bullying, a lot of being made fun of. My mom made our clothes, so the clothes was sold and stuff like that. And then also it was bad enough being Black in America during that time, but like Dora was saying, being Black and then being proud of African culture or displaying any kind of African culture, and then being a girl, because being a girl, you was at the bottom of the totem pole. So, I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but, when I was growing up, is we already know what we experienced being Black people, but, now you piling on layers of, you're Black, you're Afrocentric, and you're a woman.
You're a
woman.
girl, you're a woman.
You are just the scum of the earth, so it was rough. It was rough coming up. And like they said, by the time, middle school, high school, I'm like, what, 6 years younger than you, Dora? So middle school, high school, same dudes that was making fun of me in elementary was trying to talk to me, which was really like, what, where this came from. So yeah, it's interesting. I had a unique opportunity to, I left the religion for about 15 years. And the guy I was married to, he was actually wind up taking on the role of a pastor. So I was there for 15 years. And so I got to see both sides, And
he was African too. He was
an African. He was Nigerian, Yoruba. So, I got to see both sides of it, of the coin. And so coming back, I know exactly what I'm coming back to. I know exactly what it means. I know how powerful it is. I know how liberating it is. And it's just, it's a real good thing. So yeah, I'm proud of my mother. I'm happy that she met my father and was able to, like they said, spread it into different areas. So
yeah, nah, and I'm like, before we go to the next part, I want to just really salute both of them, because I haven't even told them this yet, but they both play a very special part in my life, with Yeye being my godmother, and Baba Tolu, the Balogun Shango USA, being my godfather. So it's like they both have a very special place in my path and in my life, because both my grandmothers are gone in the realm of the ancestors. So I feel like not only do I have a godmother, but I feel like I got another chance to have another grandmother, and then for like Baba Tolu, I never really knew my grandfather on my father's side, so I never had that figure in my life. I've always been someone who was drawn and attached to elders, but it's like I didn't have certain pieces I was missing in my own life growing up. So now to kind of have that relationship with him, it's not only as a godfather, godson, spiritual relationship, but I kind of can look at him in that light, almost in a grandfather, type of role as well. So it's like they're both two very powerful spirits and forces, especially for this whole tradition in terms of where we are now. And with that, we actually seen both of them, receive crowns, crowns of significance, with the Balogun receiving his crown and Oshogbo being the, Balogun Shango USA, which is actually tied back to Oyo, the whole, Shango entire empire. And then also with Yeye, with her having received her crown, 2 weeks ago, being crowned Oba as a woman king, and where it all started here in the United States in Oyotunji. powerful. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of, just being, someone coming in new within like the last 5-6 years of what I've known and what I've learned from them. So I can't imagine how profoundly proud all of you are with being, raised by them, as parents. So like with that, can y'all kind of I don't know. Let's go with Orisa Sola first because we went with her last on this on the last ones. So we'll share how that felt for you to see both of their parents receive, the honors and the crowns that they received respectively, in their journeys.
Honestly, growing up, we were really more on the spiritual side of the religion. So now that politics is kind of coming into play, is pretty interesting, because my mother, she's a real believer. I see a lot of people get into the religion today and they immediately start elays and they start it's about now that I've accomplished this, now I need people to follow me. Yeah. But they don't, you have to really understand what it is to really believe and worship in something that's higher and bigger than you. And so you never can wear a crown higher than the gods that you worship. So, I've seen I'm just sitting back watching, I really don't say that much until recently, but I sit back watching, I'm like, damn, this person, they're new in it, but do you really know what it takes to be doing all of these rituals for people's life? Like, this is serious stuff. This ain't no joke. This ain't a game, and people, they just rush into it and they automatically are doing, even, okay, say, we go to Africa or, if we learn it from priests here who've been in the religion for a very long time, they've learned for years and years and years, not just practicing on themselves, but actually helping people.
Right.
In Nigeria, they go and they train under people for years. They live in their house, they serve, they do everything to learn what they're trying to learn. And so this is not a joke. This is not a game. We can't take it lightly. We can't play with it. And so, like I said, growing up, like they spoke on my father being military. He's very military, like, oh, we got to worship, we got to do this, and my mother being very spiritual too. And having a lot of different kind of psychic abilities. Like, I didn't realize that I was a teenager, how psychic she was until I be scheming to do something I ain't supposed to do. And she walk in the room, the spirits told me you were done. I'm like, damn, which one of they had the snitch on me? This ain't fair.
Man, listen.
So, coming from people that actually believe and not just want to get into the religion because it's fad or because Beyonce said Oshun on her song, or because, it looks good and now it's good to wear your natural hair and it's good to, love your skin and all of that stuff. So I see a lot of it as being politics, but at the same time, my mother deserved that. She worked her ass off for that honor. She even deserves more than that. She put in a lot for a lot of people in the community over the years. Like, first African dance group I saw was my mom's. She was at an African dance group. She was doing, for her own Orisha birthday, she would throw a big celebration and she would do Kwanzaa out of her pocket. And, we lived in the hood. We was poor. But she was sacrificing and putting money together to bring the community together. And she really believed and she really put Oshun first, And so the same with my father. He really believed, he had a lot of courage when it came to it. And so, to see them get rewarded for putting in a lot of years of their heart, their blood, their sweat, their effort, I think it's a very beautiful thing. But, when you come to sometimes a lot of these titles being thrown out to people that didn't do anything. They don't serve nobody. They don't help nobody. They're not interested in nobody. You can't call them up and ask them for nothing.
Wow.
So I come from somewhere where people was there and you can call them up and say, hey, I'm having this problem. They're going to do what they can to try to help you using their experience with the religion. And then now it's like, it's a game to me. Not with everything. Like I said, it is some people that do deserve their titles, but it's some people that wear their titles and they throw it around and they looking to be served. They're not looking to serve anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
my
I,
opinion.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Let me tell you something, man. We had a young brother on here. I think that episode just went up yesterday, but he pretty much, and he only 24, but he was pretty much saying some very similar things about this is about service, and we was talking about humility because that is a part that's going on now that I don't like, and I'm so glad that you said it and spoke on it because a lot of people are doing it. I feel like for the wrong reasons. People are doing it for status and titles and all that, but they're not doing any work whatsoever. You know what I mean? And then for this young dude at 24 to say pretty much what you just said, similarly, like that speaks volumes as to what this is really about and why we really should be doing it because it's really about the service. I know Yeye got people all over the country who she's done, work for. So does Balagoon. Like they still hustling and doing work, pouring into the community, even now, and they both should be sitting down chilling. But they're so driven by their passion and what they believe in for us, to pave the way for us that they're still getting it, So I definitely, I respect that answer. I appreciate that answer because you definitely spoke on some real topics that need to be, we need to speak on. I say that. So with that, Boone, you want to jump in on your take on that one?
Sure thing. As far as the titles go, I have 3 accomplished parents, so it's like everybody, all 3 of my parents sacrificed so much to be able to be accomplished like they are. It's like, and I know that they weren't looking for titles, they weren't even looking for recognition, so much as they were looking for a change, to be able to make that difference for the next generation and the future generations, and for our future wealth, for our own well-being, because this is the religion of reincarnation, where we continue to reincarnate and come here again and again and again, and for them to care so much for their children and the generations to come, to set it up so that they have that confidence, that they have that support system, that foundation of knowledge and culture and that connection to the elements. Is this, they weren't looking for that, so for them to be recognized by their by the people that they've helped, by their peers, they sacrificed a lot, and I think that the recognition is just the icing on the cake for them. It's not anything that is like that they were looking for, they were bargaining for. It's the icing on the cake, because I know my mom, growing up with her over the years, she was never into trying to be seen or trying to get accolades or anything like that. Everything that she did, the sacrifices that she made, were all from her heart. They were from her love of self and the love of her ancestral culture and religion, and also the love of her children, because everything that she's ever done, every effort that she's ever made, has always been for us. Every sacrifice that was made for us. It was not for herself so much as it was for us, and our children and the children after that. And so that so that when she reincarnates, that it will be a cushy setting. Everything will be back in place. Our ancestral kingdom will be resurrected. All of our ancestral greatness will come back and be restored. And I commend them for the sacrifice. I commend them for it, because there are so many things that I probably couldn't do. My mom talks about her experiences and the things that she went through, and the losses, the personal losses, the personal humiliation and things like that, that can't be touched and healed that way. It takes years and years to be able to get over some of those experiences and things. And I can't say that I could have done any of those things. The only thing that I can do right now is to continue the legacy, and to continue to give her the respect, and also my father, his memory, and all of the things, and also my stepfather, because all of them, they sacrificed so much, to the point where I can't really even say, I can't even put into words some of the things that they did, but definitely deserving, definitely long overdue, you know, and so, you know, they can now these golden years are, you know, that much sweeter because of the recognition, because, you know, and my mom was so surprised that our Orisha community came out and came to Oyotunji and supported her like that. She just keeps talking about it over and over again. But did you see the people? Did you see the community? They came out. I wasn't expecting that. So, you know, it's like to see her finally being recognized for something like that, you know, because like Duro was saying, you know, us leaving Oyotunji was tumultuous. It was rushed, and it was, you know, because of different things hidden behind the scenes, things that were going on. However, you know, Oyotunji continued on. A lot of different people came through Oyotunji. A lot of different people you can see today who are prominent faces of Oyotunji. But my mother was almost like forgotten, like she never existed, and a lot of people went on to try and act like she never existed. So this right here is like the blessing from Orisha that we didn't see coming. It was so sudden, and it came almost out of like nowhere. It was out of thin air, but this was, you know, this is an attestation to the power of Orisha, the power of our ancestors, that they will not allow any good deed to go unnoticed. You know, it's like they were going to do it in such a big fashion, in such a big way, for the both of them, for all three of them, you know, because my father's legacy lives on, even though he is no longer on this earth. His legacy and all of his works, you can almost pick up any book that is written, and it's going to give reverence to, you know, my father in some way as the father of, you know, our ancestral religion being resurrected in this country. So definitely, you know, proud. Definitely proud to be a part of that lineage, proud to be a part of that legacy. You know, it's like Oyotunji was a dream. You know, it's kind of like Obatala's dream. You know, so for it to see it still flourishing, all of those things, it was manifested. You know, through some real tough times. You know, in Oyotunji, it was not always roses. It was tough. You know, but the people, the community stuck together and worked it. And you know, I underwent my Obatala initiation when I was 5 years old. I was actually 4, 2 months before my 5th birthday. But you know, everything, you know, after the initiation, it didn't stop, you know, kind of like what Fashina said, as far as, you know, people getting their initiations and immediately jumping on the horn and making posts like they are been experts for years. And it's like, you know, there's no way that you could have gotten this information or come up with these things, because you kind of you know, kind of just yesterday, you was born yesterday, you know. But you know, after the initiation, when I was 5 years old, it was still, I had duties and responsibilities that I had to do, you know, for the temple, for, you know, the priests and all of that other type of stuff that was still up and coming. I had to wake up, me and my sister Hunu, because we went through our Obatala initiation together. And we would have to wake up, and we would have to go down to the Obatala temple and change all of the waters in there, clean up and tidy up, and do all types of things. These were like, you know, priestly duties. But nowadays it seems like that, you know, we've gotten away. A lot of people, you know, and I myself have gone to Nigeria and gotten initiations, you know, as well, you know, because you know, a lot of the stuff over here is not offered. But you know, a lot of people now, they divert from you know, the traditional, going through a lot of the you know, the restrictions and a lot of the rigmarole that comes with initiations. And you know, but even still, you know, they get these egos, and I don't understand how that's possible. But you know, even still, very proud of my parents. You know, still learning a lot of things. So privileged. I feel so blessed to be able to learn at the foot of these people, because they had so much knowledge and so much wisdom. You know, so definitely appreciative of the gods and the deities for the blessings of recognition. You know, it gives me hope and inspiration. It's like, you know, it's an attestation to the power of Orisha. Is all I can say to that. Shay.
That's what's up. Yeah, man. So yeah, with that, it's funny. The young brother also stated about that. He said his answer to that was because a lot of us are so hurt, and a lot of us aren't raised, you know, being we're not raised being cultivated. We're not raised with the proper nourishment with 2-family households and a lot of trauma. And man, I'm telling you, it was a dope interview, but to hear it from a young brother so young, it really was refreshing for me, because he was saying things that people our age and older should be saying that's not, you know what I'm saying? But that young saying that, it makes a lot of sense. And so I think it is a lot of work that, we got to do internally as a culture, but it'll get done, especially with people like that's in the position to do it, such as everyone on this call. So with that, Duro, you want to kind of share your take on it, the big moment?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's definitely an honor to, be a child of, three very accomplished parents. It's truly an honor. But one of the things that Yeye always instilled in us was to always be down to earth and practical, and never allow any titles or any types of accolades or any of that to go to your head too much. Because he always said, at the end of the day, we all human beings, and we all are seen as one in the eyes of the Orisha. We all are seen as their children. So, while you may, surpass this one or that one, in academia or being noticed, you still, you have to go to the bathroom and you still got to eat. It's extremely.
You're still a human.
Yeah, you're still a human, you're still immortal. Don't ever allow any of that to go to your head. And so, being, a child of the Oba, and now our mother is also an Oba too. So father and Oba, mother and Oba, and now our father, Balogun Shango, stepfather, while it feels good, and I give a lot of credit to them. I don't even always feel like I am even deserving of it. I'm just a kid, I'm just one of your children, I didn't do anything, I'm just a child. I'm the Alma, I'm not, I didn't do anything to sometimes, and I guess the only thing that I did do is maybe choose the Ori that I was going to have before I got here. So maybe I chose well, that's the part that I did. But other than that, they did the most of it. But in coming away from Oyotunji, and even in being an Oyotunji, just the stories of Yeye being an Oyotunji, say, hey, a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems in Oyotunji that eventually caused her to leave back in 1981 was just so many big heads. Everybody was a royalty. Everybody wanted to be somebody, and she's like, hey, look, at the end of the day, we are a bunch of Black folks who left established society to come out here and live on a piece of land with no running water and no electricity, and we barely got a couple of dollars, but we out here calling ourselves kings and queens. So step off of that a little bit, and just do the work. Just be concerned with the deities, and let the deities show you that they are really the royalty at the end of the day. And the hard work that Yeye put in. I mean, she came with her and the first Oba. They came from New York to South Carolina, and it was just a piece of land. It was just her and him and they 3 kids. And they were not, nobody was royalty at that point. He, if anything, was a chief priest from his temple in New York. But beyond that, they were just 2 African American people that said, hey, look, we are leaving established society to create, our own thing. And, and they struggled, they, lived in, what we be calling lean-tos and, all which is just like a 4 walls and a little roof put together. They lived in lean-tos. They didn't have running water. They didn't have a whole lot of things. And even coming out of Oyotunji, we lived, it was hard. We lived in the hood. We was regular Black folks struggling. We was on food stamps at times. All of those things. And so even now, knowing that our father was the Oba of Oyotunji, it still didn't change that, hey, look, at this particular moment, we struggling. we got to get these food stamps, and she's waiting on this FDC check to come in because while Oguntolu was an entrepreneur and he made a lot of money, don't get me wrong. I mean, the man was masterful at his jewelry making, and he knew how to go out in these streets and convince people to buy, and he made a lot of money. But when you have 8 children, and you live in America and the prices are high and you are only one working parent, you're going to have some supplements. You're going to have some money working in. So they, can't say that he wasn't earning a living and that, they was just sitting back and, collecting off the government. It was subsidy and it didn't do a whole lot, and so that was a lot of what kept her down to earth and always kept us feeling like, don't let any of this titles and all of that, don't let none of that go to your head. The only thing that's keeping us afloat at the end of the day is the Orishas. At the end of the day, they keeping us from sickness, they keeping us from death, they keeping us from all of these enemies out here that feel like we should be Christians, and we trying to be in this religion. And so she was always about keeping down to earth and always remembering that you are mortal before anything, before you any princess or prince. And so it's always been difficult for me to consider myself a princess. People say that to me, and people have said it, and I'm just a regular person. This is a bit much now. It was taking me a minute to get used to it. And even going back to Oyotunji and people addressing me as your grace, addressing us as your grace. And I'm like, hey, if I'm all that graceful, then what the hell, I need to be, I need this or that or the other. I'm just a regular person, your grace. And so it was honorable. I gotta say, if more than anything, what they have done is has honored us as children. We are just the ones who get to bask in their light, the struggle, because they really laid down roots and were brave people at a time where you think about the 70s and the civil rights struggle, the 60s and the 70s, and they actually made a place for themselves at a time where Black people in this country just had no rights at all and were not anybody, and they poked their chests out as men and women, and said, hey, we don't need permission from, the establishment to be somebody, to be figureheads, or to feel proud of ourselves, or to even be royalty. We don't need the establishment. We don't need the man to tell us that we are royalty. We can determine that on our own. And so for that, then I believe that they should be called royalty, because, people might say, the monarchy is dead and, ain't no kings and queens. Get on up out of here with that. You know what I mean? But I would say they are political kings and queens, politically, spiritually, because their politics is where their royalty lies in that, because they stood up and poked their chest out when a lot of our people were cowering and, going to the way of the establishment and saying, hey, look, I want to blend into their world and I want to be like them. But they said, hey, look, I'm going to throw on these African clothes and these head wraps and change my name. They were the pioneers, some of the first African Americans in this country to change their names from, the Negro names that they were given, the slave names that they were given, to African names. And so for that reason, they are royalty, not because, they were rich and they lived in castles and all of that, but because they politically poked out their Black African chest and said, I don't need whitey, for lack of a better word, to tell me I'm somebody. We can determine that. We as a people can determine that ourselves. And that's just what they did as a group of people. They determined that our father was going to be the Oba, and then the Oni of Ife second that motion and said, hey, look, I'm going to go that much further. And so, we here, determined that, and those people who lived within Oyotunji at the time and the current king and the Ifa determined that Yeye was the Obabirin, that she was the twin to the man king, that she was the twin, she was a woman king. It was determined by the people and determined by Ifa. It wasn't whitey, or it wasn't, you know, living up in some castle. You know,
Right.
it was the fact that she was confident enough and they were proud enough to just not cower and be, you know, spooks behind the door, if you will, but
Yeah,
actually strong African Americans.
I say no. That's a powerful answer. I love it. I love it. And I love the humility, because all of y'all are being raw and being real, and I definitely love it and respect it. But I personally, I believe in like giving people their flowers and props, and so I'm gonna say I do appreciate the humility, but everybody on here is a freedom fighter, and all of y'all are freedom fighters and warrior queens in your own light. And I say that, and I mean that, because there was times I remember multiple bembes that I've been to where you were on stage, Duro, and you was heating up, you know. And like I remember one particular was in Orlando. I can't remember whose bembe it was, but we was in Orlando and Bronze Kingdom, and you was lighting it up. Well, I told Brad, like, boy, she teared it up there, boy. She in the zone right now. She was going in, and so I love it though, because it's, you know, it's a real thing. It's real. And that passion is deep, you know, it's deeply embedded, you know, from all the way throughout the DNA. And then at Boom, like now, when I do at Bowls for people, my prayers, I be going hard with them prayers. They be like, hey, you need to get real with prayer. Like, yeah, well, you don't know who my auntie on there. I get that from that Boom.
Yes.
Them prayers up.
Boom is a prayer warrior, boy.
Y'all flowers, man. And give credit where credit is due. And I just am getting to meet you, Orisa Sola, but I saw just in a little bit, I think last week or two online, you be lighting it up with dropping the commentary online with like just sharing, you know, knowledge. Like, I'm like, okay, I see it, but I'm not surprised because I know, you know, who your parents are. But so with that, it's definitely refreshing to see the feminine energy, but you know, that real warrior energy too. You know what I'm saying? I respect it. You know, I honor it. And with that, I think there was another topic that we was gonna hit, feminine, or I should say sexist, like sexist energy within the Isheshe community. So I think Rishola, you said you wanted to talk about what's going on with that.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it because I know it seems like one of the things that are kind of standing in the way of us really uniting the way that we need to and really taking everything to the next level. You know, because if we say that, you know, we're trying to really know ourselves more and our vibration is raising and we're trying to, bask in the light of, you know, what they put, what the Orisha and the ancestors put down for us. We got to be realistic about how, you know, things are going, and the things that are old and they need to go out the door, you know. So
they're outworn.
They're old, and it's like, you know, I was having a conversation with Yeye, and we was talking about, you know, how, African American men. She made a comment when we was discussing. She said, you know, it seems like they stepped into the role of the slave master, and she said that, you know, during slavery, the slave master owned the men and the women. So the men, all they did was breed with the women. They weren't responsible for their upkeep. They weren't responsible for their eating and drinking and the roof over their head. They weren't responsible for that. That was the slave master's job. Wow. So they pretty much got the benefit of, you know, having access to the woman's body, making children for the slave master, and then they didn't have to be responsible for nothing. And so, you know, some of that you kind of see that carry out, you know, into the generations, as well as, you know, just wanting to actually put women below, you know, men, when this universe is about balance. And so, you know, you got the polarities, you got the masculine on this side, you got the feminine on that side. So why would you, you know, if the masculine is the left, why would in the feminine is the right, why would you say now your right hand is lesser than your left hand, or vice versa? Like, that's stupid. It's crazy. And to think that women, you know, a lot, you know, people discuss a lot about polygamy, which, you know, to each his own. If that's what you want to do, you know, it's up to you. But the reality is that, you know, people are going on, you know, or it is some men, I can't say all men, but some are thinking like women don't have emotions. That you don't feel, you know, if they bring somebody in or they want to, oh, now you have a co-wife. So what she's, and then, oh, women are so emotional. Okay, so if you beat a child, you expect them not to cry.
Right.
You abuse a woman, you expect her not to be emotional. Is she not human? Like, that's just craziness. So, I think that it's important for men and women, because it's some women that also side with the men that are looking forward to continuing oppression. So, men and women, you have to really raise your vibration and say, hey, this is my other half. This is another part of me. There's nobody walking earth now that wasn't made from man and woman. You needed both to actually make the human being, make the child. So why would you think one is lesser than the other? It's like, the white people, when they were, when it was slavery, them saying that, hey, black people, we're not fully human. It's kind of like what's going on now as far as with the masculine energy that is looking forward to oppressing feminine energy. It's like you're saying that the women are not human. Oh, a man can't take that. But what makes you think a woman can? Like, it's just, you got to be realistic. You have daughters. Do you think your daughter should put up with that kind of behavior? You think it's good enough for her? So these are things that we need to start discussing and talking about to actually uplift our community. Like I said, it's people that's into that. If they're into poly and all that, it's cool. I don't have nothing against it. I just have an issue when you are looking to oppress and say, now you're supposed to serve me, and now you need to come under me, and you need to, but then you don't want to pay 100%. Yeah, you don't want to pay 100% of the bills, but you saying that they got to take orders from you. But nigga, you looking at me for the electricity bill. You looking at me for the rent. I got to pay the rent and listen to your ass too. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's not fair.
It's really, it's weird. It's weird. Like, let's be real. That's weird energy. You say, oh, I'm the man and I run this and everything got to go through me. Well, then run them bills then too. Like, run everything. I need to be in here like I'm a child, Like, I ain't got to be responsible for nothing. If that's the case, I just, that's just some things I was throwing out there. Just,
I think that's a whole nother show. Like, that's a whole nother show. Because listen,
it is a whole nother show.
Yeah, because the brothers who got that mentality mindset, them ain't the kind of brothers I rock with. Because we, like how I feel, I salute the Queen Mother. I'm a mama's boy, I'm a grandmama's boy, and I come from a pack of lances. Like, my aunts, all of them treated me like their own son. So it's like I've always had a great affinity for, women, especially, my mother, my grandmother, and all the women in my family in my life. So it's like, I feel like those brothers don't really have a true sense of self, or they don't know the true sense of what the balance in the universe requires. Because you can't, if we could use Ifa, you can't go to Ifa if the highest powerful Babalawo in the world cannot give you anything without the feminine aspects of the Odu. You know what I'm saying? And so with that, you can't even get divination without your mother's maiden name coming with the feminine energy to address the Odu. So it's like them brothers ain't really either educated, or they just don't really know about what the balance and what the real worth of the feminine, energy and the Queen Mothers are. You can't, the queen and the pharaohs and the kings and Kemet cannot be crowned unless it's coming through the woman's, bloodline. Is how you're able to receive being a king. Even Oni's palace, it had to come from the mother, from the, the matriarchal side of the bloodline. So it's like that, those people don't really, and it'd be some that be in positions or whatever, but I just feel like they don't really know. They're not either owning what it really is, or they don't know what it really is what I
think that's probably what it is they don't know, because even when you travel, especially when you travel back to Nigeria, you see a lot of misogyny. And it's large and within the traditional religion. And like you said, you can't even get a divination without your mother's name, or, even within the line of the kings, it was through the mother. However, the traditional religion has been so influenced by Islam. Islam was in Nigeria and West Africa, a good part of Africa, 600-700 years before Christianity showed up. Islam has been there. So it's affected a lot of the traditional religions, even though people still hold on to a lot of the traditional fabric, Islam has affected it strongly. And so you see misogyny within a culture that, in a religion that is matriarchal, but the men hold it. It's a matriarchal religion, and statues are women holding bowls and cities and everything on their heads. Odu is a woman, a female Orisha, a very integral part of the religion is Odu, and she's a female. However, everything is so held by men. You wouldn't know if you were just a foreigner who traveled there and saw how everything worked. You would just think that this religion is just all about men, and it's an influence of Islam and in Christianity as well. And so for a lot of men, why would you turn down a belief system that says you're more superior? You're superior to your mother. You're superior to your elders. Because every child wants to be able to tell their mom or dad what to do. Like, I know better than you. Kids want to do that, and so those are religions and cultures that allow you to be able to overstep your boundaries with your elders. Because we have to face it, women are men's elders. Every man came out of a woman. Every man learned his language from a woman, learned how to speak from a woman. And that's every woman learned her language and how to speak from a woman. Every human being had their first meal given to them by a woman. But somehow, because of those cultures and religions, have permeated and caused so much misogyny. And that really does need to be weeded out and rooted out. It really needs to go away, because it holds the people down. Because you become an army of, again, 100 soldiers, but you fighting with you going to war with only 50. It's like having two hands, but you only fighting with one. You got two eyes, but you patching up the other one. You got two nostrils, but you're plugging one up. You got two ears, but you just want to listen to one. So
it's like yes, like the original war was between men and women. It's a divide and conquer type thing. The longer we fight with each other, the more subdued we are, the more vulnerable we are to the attacks of the enemies and all those who want to conquer our people. We should be the first people to be able to come together. That should be one of our biggest agendas. That should be the first agenda, is to work out the the imbalances between the men and the women. And in doing that, we will basically solve so many other problems. We would solve the problem of being attacked. That's for sure.
We would solve so many problems, as a continent, Africa as a continent, and we African Americans as a people, those are one of our biggest things that hold us back and allow other groups to come in and colonize us and do all kind of stuff. Because that fight within us, the fight between men and women, is the biggest fight. Is the biggest fight. And so you keep oppressing your women, you are oppressing half of your army. And so you might be physically strong, but then you're
pressing yourself,
the strategist down. You literally cutting off your nose to spite your face. Literally, in every sense of the word. And why would you do that? Why would you chop off your nose right now and say, I got at you now? Now how stupid do you look?
It's real. It's funny because I was just on another podcast and something similar came up, and I was talking about the movie. Have y'all seen the documentary 1804 about the Haitian Revolution?
No, I have not.
Yeah, it's powerful, but it talks about the whole Haitian Revolution and how everybody came together. And mind you, you had Africans from different parts of the continent that they were shipping them over here from, or shipping our ancestors over here from the continent, from Nigeria, Dahomey, all different parts. But when they got to the island of Haiti, they all came together with the local, indigenous Haitians, and they couldn't even speak the same language, but they all came together to create, their strategy and their plan to end up freeing themselves and being an independent, free nation of, Africans after colonizers kind of traveled around the world. But it's powerful, and it talks about how instrumental the women were in making this happen. You know what I'm saying? From whether it was poisoning the masters with the food, you know what I'm saying? Or what, it was just so many different intricate roles that they played. But it's a powerful documentary, but it really shows, you know, on Front Street how how important it is for us to have the balance of both the masculine and feminine energy when it comes to not just making a revolution, but just for, you know, the sake of us building a nation, you know, and for building our families, our communities. So that's facts. I agree.
And
Yes. Cool. Thank you so much.
you
I appreciate
for
it.
giving us the opportunity to tell our story.
Listen, look, I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all coming to bring the feminine energy and sharing it. And
I shake to that.
Anytime, let us know when you do it again.
I will, for sure. So I definitely appreciate it. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bemi, and a huge thanks to the Olori Temple, the queens of the Oyotunji village, and also of the Balogun Shango, the office of the Balogun Shango USA. So I definitely appreciate y'all for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. We are out. Peace.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé sàpò ìyàpọ̀ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your